Faites appel, s'il vous plaît, monsieur le greffier.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier. Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brélade.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Gruville.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern. Madame le député Labby.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Tadier.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Luce. Madame le député Dublé.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Morel.
Présent.
Madame le député Lehegara.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ayer. Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves. Madame le député Gardner. Monsieur le député Gorst.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Farnham.
Présent.
Madame le député Moore.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Joseph. Monsieur le député Balash. Monsieur le député Coles.
Présent.
Madame le député Poré. Monsieur le député Wall. Madame le député Miles.
Présent.
Madame le député Scott.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Renouf.
Présent.
Madame le député Curtis. Madame le député Feltham. Madame le député Binet. Madame le député Jeune. Madame le député Miller.
Présent.
Madame le député Howe.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Binet.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le député Kovac.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Curtis.
Présent.
Madame le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Wilson.
Présent.
Madame le député Stevenson.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Andrews.
Monsieur le doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les ciels et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de la conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit que toute leur délibération est accompagnée de ta bénédiction. Réussisse au bien et au soulagement du peuple qui ont de plus de commettre à leurs soins. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par les mérites de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi est la règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Madame la connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Sir.
Excusez, I think.
Thank you, sir.
Monsieur le député Southern.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Luce.
Sir, Deputy Luce is at a medical appointment and will be in as soon as he can.
Excusez.
Madame le député Alves.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Joseph.
Defoe.
Madame la Deputy Feltham.
Présente.
Les États sont constitués. Yes, Deputy.
Yes, sir. There is a long service award ceremony at 12 o'clock, and I'm asking if I'm a member of the SEB that I may attend.
Members agree that from 12 o'clock the Deputy may be marked excusé? Yes. very
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir.
well. Yes, Deputy Garden.
So I would like to advise that I have a hospital appointment at 3:30 today, and I will be absent for an hour.
Very well. For the duration of that, you will be excusé, yeah? Very well. There are, I should say, a number of subordinate amendments under B. A number of matters have been presented or laid as described on the consolidated order paper under section C. We come to D, notification of lodged propositions. Proposed Government Plan 2024 to 27, P72, Sixth Amendment. Lodged by Deputy Kovac. Proposed Government Plan, Sixth Amendment, lodged by Deputy Kovac. Proposed Government Plan 12th Amendment, lodged by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Government Plan 13th Amendment, lodged by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Government Plan 15th Amendment, lodged by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Government Plan 22nd Amendment, another amendment, lodged by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Government Plan 23rd Amendment, an amendment, lodged by Deputy Luce. Proposed Government Plan 25th Amendment, lodged by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Government Plan 29th Amendment, an amendment, lodged by Deputy Howell. Proposed Government Plan 30th Amendment, again an amendment, lodged by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Government Plan 30th Amendment, Second Amendment, lodged by Deputy Howell. Proposed Government Plan 31st Amendment, an amendment, lodged by Deputy Howell. Proposed Government Plan 33rd Amendment, an amendment, lodged by Deputy Mezek. Draft Finance 2024 Budget Jersey Law, Fourth Amendment, an amendment, lodged by the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Draft Cold Weather Bonus and Payments, an amendment, extension of eligibility regulations, lodged by the Minister for Social Security. Draft Employment Amendment number 15, Jersey Law, lodged by the same Minister. Amendment to Standing Orders Role of Elected Members, lodged by the Privileges and Procedures Committee. The following have been withdrawn in accordance with our Standing Order 34.1, Proposed Government Plan, Fourth Amendment, had been lodged by Deputy Curtis. Proposed Government Plan 29th Amendment had been lodged by Deputy Howell. There is nothing under F, G and H. Under I, there are no written questions submitted within the deadline and accordingly no responses to be tabled. We come now to oral questions, and the first question is to be asked by Deputy Scott of the Minister for Social Security. Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Regarding social security payments by employers, will the Minister state the total amount of payments that the government allowed to be deferred during the COVID-19 pandemic, the total amount of payments that continue to be deferred, and the amount written off to date?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for her question. The total social security contributions deferred came to £17.8 million. £1.3 million was in respect of quarters which are still within the 2-year deferral period, that is, they are not yet due for payment. Around £8 million has reached the end of the 2-year deferral period. These sums are either already subject to a repayment plan agreed between the employer and Treasury or are being worked on by the Treasury debt team. The remainder, some £8.5 million, has already been repaid by businesses. At this time, no debts have officially been written off, although it was always possible that some companies would no longer be trading by the time repayment was required.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott?
Yes, please, sir. Could the Minister please inform the Assembly what percentage of the 8 million aren't subject yet to a repayment plan?
Sir, I don't have that information. I think of the... Well, it's either subject to repayment plan or there is no repayment plan and is being pursued by Treasury. I think is what I've previously said. I don't have a breakdown of the proportion of that.
Very well. We come now to question. Oh, Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. Just briefly, does the Social Security Minister not consider that she should have these figures as to what's been repaid and what's not been repaid to hand?
Sir, I'm sure the figures exist, but we can't foresee every question, and I don't have the information available. Thank you.
Do you have a supplemental, Deputy Sutton?
Yes. Would the Minister like to volunteer to inform members how much those sums are?
Sir, as I say, £8 million is subject to either repayment plan or pursuit, but yes, I will try and find that information if it's available. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Scott.
Sir, I just wanted to confirm that the Minister therefore is saying she's not able to inform the Assembly what percentage of the 8 million is being pursued at this moment in time then?
Sir, ultimately it's all being pursued. We are not writing anything off at the moment. Some employers have a payment plan, some employers don't, and that's subject to discussion with the debt team. I simply don't have the breakdown of the two, and as I've said, I'm happy to provide it. Thank you.
Well, we come to question 2. The Deputy Andrews will ask the same Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what consideration, if any, she has given to introducing a maximum length of time for employment probation periods, including any extension to the probation period? And if none, why has she not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Thank the Deputy for his question. Probationary employment periods are a matter for contractual agreement between an employee and an employer. Probation has no impact on an employee's employment rights. I have no evidence to suggest that this is a priority issue or that abuse of probation periods have any prevalence on the island, and I have no plans to reduce such legislation. Thank you.
Supplemental question. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister explain whether she or her department in preparing for this question have had any feedback on what in many employment contracts may be a discrepancy between what is their probation period and what is the qualifying period for unfair dismissal?
Sir, I don't believe there is any discrepancy. Probation does not affect an employee's employment rights. Probationary periods, I believe, are generally between 3 months and 6 months. The period for unfair dismissal is 52 weeks, so that's broadly a year. However, if someone was dismissed, I believe if someone was dismissed during their probationary period for a reason that is automatically unfair, for example, something that's discriminatory, then that they still have that right. But given that most people's probation periods expire within at most 6 months, that it has no impact on their ability to claim unfair dismissal. Thank you.
Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. The Minister said there was no discrepancy and then went on to describe the discrepancy, which is that probation periods are often 3 or 6 months and the qualifying period for unfair dismissal is a year. Or to put it another way, you can prove to your employer that you're a good employee and worth employing, but don't get your rights to claim unfair dismissal if they sack you for no reason after you've passed your probation. So will the Minister, given those facts, and having been asked by Deputy Andrews this question, endeavour to look at this issue again to work out whether the length of time we have for qualifying for unfair dismissal is appropriate in Jersey?
Sir, I'm not sure I fully understand the question. When an employer employs someone, they will often put them in a probation period of either 3 months or 6 months. That is there to ensure that the person is right for the business and that the business is right for the employee. When I said there is no discrepancy, everybody has, whether you have a probation period or not, your rights to unfair dismissal come in at 52 weeks, unless your dismissal is automatically unfair, for example, discrimination. It is very difficult to legislate for probationary periods because it really is a matter for the business. Some jobs will be very complex. and therefore will merit a longer period. Others will be fairly straightforward, and all you need to know in a matter of 3 months is whether the employee is reliable, turns up and does a good job. I think the notion that people are employing people for 3 or 6 months and then sacking them is probably misplaced, and I have no evidence that that is the case. Thank you.
Deputy Sultan.
Thank you, sir. If one were to replace the phrase probation periods by traineeships, would that make a difference to the Minister's answer? And if so, how would it make a difference?
Sir, it wouldn't make any difference whether you are a young person starting a first job. I've started a job as a fully qualified lawyer of some experience and had to do a 6-month probation period. How do you decide, how do you legislate for who needs a probation period and for how long? It is a matter between employer and employee. If an employee feels their probationary period is being abused, then they can go and seek the advice of JACS. But I do not think this is an area that can easily be legislated, and I don't intend to do that in the absence of evidence that it is really required. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Sultan.
Sir, the difference between a traineeship and a probation period is likely to be different amounts of payments, wages, to those two categories. Is that not the case?
Sir, I'm sure the Deputy will remember that I believe earlier this year we have removed the trainee minimum wage. So whether you're a trainee or not, you will earn the same minimum wage as any other employee. But most employers will pay someone who has will pay someone at the outset, I expect, someone who has no qualifications or skills slightly less than a fully qualified employee, and a probationary period will have no impact on that. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Andrews. Thank you very much. We come to question 3. That Deputy Tadier will ask of the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy.
That's a new title, sir. So will the Minister advise what lessons, if any, have been learnt from the recent closure of Nude Food, particularly in relation to those workers who were brought to the island on work permits and their ability or otherwise to seek alternative employment?
Thank you, sir. Ordinarily, the subject of work permits would fall to the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs rather than the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. A work permit is tied to specific employment, and should this cease, the immigration permission also falls away, if there is one. If extenuating circumstances exist, work permit holders whose employment ends can be allowed to switch to alternative employment without leaving the island. Jersey Customs and Immigration Service have been in contact with the majority of those affected by the closure of Nude Food, and in most cases they are being permitted to switch to another employer, subject to finding alternative employment within hospitality. And I would also like to add that I just want to send my thoughts are absolutely with the staff and the owners of Nude Food.
Supplemental question.
Thanks, sir. First of all, can I thank the Minister for answering? I think there's something of a Venn diagram between his department and Home Affairs and this one. Clearly, the fact that his department's now been changed to sustainable economic development. Does he agree that actually there's something not very sustainable about the current system we've got, where we need to get many of our employees from overseas on work permits? And actually that we find in such a situation where work permits are terminated prematurely, that actually those workers are having to turn to social media and crowdfunding to actually look for, before they can look for other jobs. Does the Minister have any thoughts about the synergy between his department and Home Affairs to actually make this a more sustainable and perhaps a more fair area for those workers and businesses?
Thank you. And I thank the Deputy for his question, sir. And I would like to say, first of all, that I have a very good working relationship with the Minister for Home Affairs. And there is no question that one of the subjects of conversation that we have, and official meetings, etc., that we have had since day one of taking up our roles has been about work permits, and will continue to be about work permits. I understand that the Jersey Customs and Immigration Service, and I have seen this myself and spoken to them myself, does have a very understanding attitude in the main to when, very unfortunate circumstances arise, such as the one that we're discussing today. So from that perspective, I am comforted that the Jersey Customs and Immigration Service does adopt the right attitude, even where the rules themselves may be slightly more fixed. I would have to refer to the Minister for Home Affairs as to whether or not work permits need further changing, but it is a constant subject of conversation.
Deputy Scott.
Sir, will the Minister accept that the attractiveness of the island for workers to come here to work under a work permit is somewhat threatened when hospitality businesses are perceived to be vulnerable?
Thank you, sir. I think the biggest threat or the biggest action to make it hard for our economy to attract people was, in fact, the United Kingdom leaving the European Union. And that is probably the main reason why the hospitality sector is finding it difficult to bring people in. But I do understand we have, as we saw in the media just last week, up to about 2,000 people on work permits, possibly more. And there is no question that Jersey remains an attractive jurisdiction for people to come and work in.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott.
No, thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Taddy.
Thank you, sir. Notwithstanding previous answers about what's not within his domain, will the Minister consider to look at what might be in his domain? And will he consider that when a work permit is issued to a worker for, let's say, 9 months, it could be a year, and if that work is terminated, could he bring about a situation whereby the worker is simply just allowed to stay on the island to fulfil that period and look for work without needing to revert to Home Affairs, which, with due respect, has absolutely nothing to do with their employment chances between, that should be a relationship between the employer and the employee. Does the Minister agree that more liberalisation of the work permit system might be beneficial?
I thank the Deputy for his supplementary question. I'm very much open to discussing whether liberalisation of work permits is the right way forward or not. I personally don't have a fixed view on that at the moment. But it is wrong to suggest that I have any power in terms of work permits. I, as Minister for Sustainable Economic Development, do not. It really does fall entirely to the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. So where the business community speaks to me and has concerns about work permits, which from time to time they do, I pass that on to the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, and we have an ongoing dialogue about the appropriateness of our work permit system, and that will continue. So even following this exchange, I will speak to the Minister for Home Affairs about these matters. Thank you, sir.
Well, we come to question 4 that Deputy Southern will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the adoption of P78 of 2022 and the response to written question 49/2023, will the Chief Minister advise what progress, if any, has been made in developing options to convert the minimum wage to a living wage in Jersey?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Could I start by asking to raise the defo on Deputy Ozef, please?
Yes, the defo is raised on Deputy Ozef.
Thank you. So to answer the Deputy's question, I'm pleased to confirm that the investigation on the feasibility of converting the minimum wage to a living wage has been completed and that the report will be published before the end of the year.
Supplemental question, Deputy Southern.
May I congratulate the Minister on actually meeting one of her targets?
I thank the Deputy.
Deputy Mezek.
Yes, sir. What does that report say?
So, as I said, it will be published before the end of the year and we will all be able to read it, but I haven't read it myself.
No supplementary, therefore. You're entitled to a final supplementary, Deputy Southern, in the circumstances. Very well. We come to question 5 that Deputy Farnham will ask of the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. What assessment has the Minister undertaken to be certain that the proposed government plan budget for the States of Jersey Police of £27.4 million per annum is sufficient to provide an efficient and effective police service?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his question. As a member of the Jersey Police Authority, the Deputy will be aware that the States of Jersey Police Force Law 2012 provides that the Police Authority is responsible for overseeing the performance of policing services by the State's police force. This includes providing advice in relation to the budget. I therefore rely on the authority and, of course, my regular discussions with the Chief Officer to provide me with reassurance in relation to the sufficiency of the budget. I'm assured that the budget is sufficient to deliver an appropriate policing response for the island and maintain our high levels of public safety.
Supplemental question.
Can I thank the Minister for her response, sir? And whilst I know the Minister said the budget will provide an appropriate service, sir, we want to ensure we have an efficient and an effective service, sir. Is the Minister aware that the proposed freezing of the budget essentially is tantamount, given the rates of inflation, to quite a significant cut in the budget, and it will have an impact on frontline policing, sir? And I just wondered if she would be prepared to revisit that as a matter of urgency for next year's budgeting government plan.
I thank the Deputy for his question. The Chair of the Police Authority raised some concerns about public safety recently in the media, and he actually said that there could be an impact on public safety. And of course, he's right to highlight that risk. And as with all my frontline services, I will monitor budgets very closely to ensure that financial constraints do not impact service delivery. I'm currently satisfied that the budget is sufficient to deliver an appropriate policing response for the island and maintain our high levels of public safety.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, in the response just given, it was a recognition that there could be an issue regards the funding level. Can I ask the Minister whether what analysis is undertaken and the specific risk areas that may arise for the police force in providing the service that I know we all need? Thank you, sir.
I refer to my previous answer in that it is the role of the police authority to advise me due to their oversight of the performance of policing services by the States of Jersey Police. Evidently, I converse regularly with the Chief Police Officer, and areas of particular risk will be highlighted. In the event that I consider the budget to be insufficient to maintain public safety, I won't hesitate to talk to my colleague, the Treasury Minister, to make sure the force has what it needs. The Deputy, in his initial question, asked about certainty. And as we've seen over the last year, we can never be absolutely sure to what extent our emergency service will be tested, either operationally or financially. And I think I would also note that we need to remember that the police and the funding for the police is not the sole driver of community safety. It doesn't carry all the risk. It is just that, a community effort involving all of us to keep Jersey a safe and special place.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Yes, please, sir. May I ask the Minister then whether she is reassuring the Jersey Police Authority that when concerns are raised, then they will be listened to and be acted on promptly? Thank you, sir.
I thank the Deputy for his question. As we would expect, I have had discussions with the Chair of the Authority and the Chief Officer about the challenges of delivering our essential policing services. The Authority have not yet to date raised a formal concern in relation to the budget, nor have they sought any additional resources for the force. At such a time they do, I will consider that request.
Colin Harbison-Prelade.
Thank you, sir. The community policing section of the States of Jersey Police provide an essential amount of support for the honorary police services in the parish. Would the Minister confirm that their presence out in the field, so to speak, won't be compromised by these budget cuts? Thank you.
thank the Conitard for the question, and a very important question. I am not in a position to confirm that the Community Policing Unit will not be withdrawn to other areas. As we will have noticed over the last 12 months, some of those community police officers have been withdrawn to support the force in areas that have been required to meet the emergencies. So although I would like to be able to confirm that to the Conitard, I'm not in a position to do so.
Supplemental, Conitard?
Yes, sir. Will the Minister agree that she perhaps needs to be a little bit more forceful in retaining the budget for the community police service in the parishes?
It is entirely for the Chief Police Officer to decide how operationally he deploys his officers. I have fought very hard and had very robust discussions to maintain and increase the budget for States of Jersey Police, but those operational decisions will always be made by the Chief Police Officer.
Deputy Tanya.
Given the fact that last year's and this year's inflation have been in double figures, and when one looks at that in a compounded way, I think one can think it's eye-watering. Could the Minister give us advice as to what her budget is looking like in real terms when that RPI is taken into account? Is it a cut or is it an increase?
So I refer to my previous answer. It is down to the police authority to advise me on decisions around the budget. I think nobody would suggest that there has been an increase, but it is down to the Chief Officer and myself to decide how that cake is going to be cut.
So that doesn't really answer my question. It's quite simple. We've effectively seen a 23% increase in the last 2 years in RPI. Has the budget for the police and her department more generally gone up by 23% or not?
I think the Deputy will agree that actually no budget across the States of Jersey has been increased by 23%.
Final supplementary, Deputy Farm.
Thank you, sir. I know the Minister has, as I said, she's fought hard to increase budget for her ministerial, which is commendable, sir. Can she confirm what actual budget was presented to the Council of Ministers for policing for the term of this government plan, and what? I'm trying to ask her, was the 27.4 million as presented by the Minister, is that what she asked for, sir, or did she ask for a greater budget, but it was reduced after a discussion at Council of Ministers?
So the budget that was requested was the budget that we achieved was the 27.1 million. There was various growth bids that went into that budget, which was slightly higher, and if my recollection serves, it was about 300,000 higher, and that was to cover issues like the digital forensics unit and other areas, but that was also across Justice and Home Affairs.
Sir, I did ask just a quick, straightforward question. Was the 27.4 million the budget that was requested by the Minister, or the budget that was left after negotiation at Council of Ministers?
My understanding of the Minister's answer, Deputy, was that certain additional figures were requested, but they didn't make it through the cut. That was my... is that correct? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can I thank the Minister?
We come now to question 6 that Deputy Messick will ask the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise what quantifiable benefits to Jersey will arise as a direct result of her presence at the COP28 conference?
So, as an outward-facing small island jurisdiction, I'm always pleased to represent us at international events and to enhance understanding of our strengths, what we can offer the world, and what we can learn from others. Climate change affects every country and territory in the world, regardless of whether we are large or small. By attending COP28, the Environment Minister and I have been able to engage directly with fellow policymakers and with senior-level contacts that will benefit the development of our domestic policies. For example, I was pleased to represent Jersey at a special event put on by the UK-UAE Business Council, demonstrating Jersey's commitment to supporting progress in the financial services industry, so we can respond to growing demands in environment, social and governance obligations, and boosting our visibility as a potential partner for other jurisdictions. We have an external-facing economy, sir, which is dependent on international trade and on our global partners having confidence that we are a competitive, responsible and mature jurisdiction with which others do business.
Supplementary question.
And thank you, sir. My question referred to quantifiable benefits. So could I ask the Chief Minister to outline exactly what has been achieved by her presence there and how islanders will directly benefit from it and how that will be measured?
So I do believe that I have answered the Deputy's question. The whole purpose of engaging in international events is to share and promote understanding of our island and what we can offer, what we are doing, and to learn from the experiences of others.
You're looking at me, Deputy, as if you're looking for some form of...
Yeah, I've asked 2 questions with the word quantifiable in and received answers that don't refer to anything quantifiable.
And the Chief Minister will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it is soft influence and soft power rather than quantifiable that the Chief Minister is saying, and that there does not appear to be an answer that is quantifiable. Is that fair, Chief Minister?
That's a very fair description. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Given that the benefits are qualitative, and I fully accept that, can I ask the Chief Minister whether the reports that the chair of the COP28 actually made comments where there was no science behind the demands to phase out fossil fuels, whether the Chief Minister agrees with that or whether she sees that as a real issue which we wouldn't want to be involved with? Thank you, sir.
Sir, my understanding of discussing with many people at the event was that the majority of people do see the science of climate change, and the focus is most certainly on introducing and enhancing factors that help us all internationally to contribute to harness the impact of climate change, and that's certainly why we were there attendance.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, and one of the perhaps quantifiable or certainly noticeable issues in Jersey at the moment is a growing voice, particularly in our media, that questions climate science. Can I ask the Chief Minister whether she will make a statement following her attendance at COP28 to put that clearly in perspective and the government's views of the importance of the science behind climate change? Thank you, sir.
So what I hear most frequently from members of the public on this subject are concerns about the cost of implementing climate change mitigations. That is something that we have addressed and are addressing as a government in putting in place measures such as support for households to convert their energy use to move away from fossil fuels, and we continue to do so. We understand the concerns that some members of our community have, but we continue to look to ways that we can all work together to support this important work across the globe.
Deputy Scott.
Sir, could the Chief Minister remind the Assembly what percentage of global fossil fuel emissions are produced by Jersey and the estimated cost of Jersey meeting net zero?
I'm not sure that is within the parameters of the question, Deputy Scott.
And
this is
whether
relating to the Chief Minister's attendance at COP and the benefits to Jersey. It's not a general discussion about climate change or indeed the cost to Jersey of climate change.
Thank
Do you
you,
wish
sir.
to rephrase your question?
Yes, sir. Sir, at the conference, did the Minister raise the matter of the small percentage of global fossil fuels emissions that are produced by Jersey and the net cost of and the cost of the island meeting net zero?
Thank you, sir. As a small island nation, we of course use a small amount of fossil fuels in relation to other places. However, as I mentioned in my earlier answer, it's part of an international effort to change the way we do things and to use energy in a different way. Therefore, at the conference, I was very keen to talk with others about our commitment to meeting the Paris Agreement and also measures that we we are undertaking as an island, for example, supporting our sailor Phil Sharp, who will be racing the only zero-emissions boat in the Vendée Round the World yacht race. It's something that we can celebrate, a use of his science, developing a hydrogen fuel cell, which is an exciting contribution to the global climate and energy economy.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott?
No, thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Messing.
Thank you, sir. We saw from some of the output from the government whilst ministers were at COP28 references to the proposal for a wind farm in Jersey's territorial waters. So could the Chief Minister explain whether it was one of the purposes of her attendance at that conference to seek out a partner to deliver that wind farm? And if that was one of the purposes, was she successful in it?
So the Deputy will be aware that we're in a consultation process at the moment and on the wind farm development. I personally feel that it's an exciting opportunity for the island to generate power, to ensure that the whole island is powered by electricity, and also to create a new export market. It is something that we're proud to talk to other nations about. We're also interested to learn about the techniques that others are adopting in terms of funding such projects and also delivering them.
So I did ask if it was specifically one of the purposes of her attendance, which I would have thought would be easy to answer yes or no.
Are you able to answer that as yes or no, Chief Minister?
So I think I explained that we're in a consultation process, therefore that is not the purpose of the visit. However, it was an exciting part of our message to share with others.
Thank you very much, Chief Minister. Yes. We come to question 7. The Deputy Ward will ask of the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs Deputy.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, will the Minister advise what consideration, if any, is being given to the implications for Jersey of the UK changes to migrant worker rules, including changes to salary thresholds and the ability to bring foreign family dependents into the UK? Thank you, sir.
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank the Deputy for the question. The Jersey Work Permit Policy, which is reviewed on a regular basis and does include some minimum salary thresholds, operates separately to the changes that are proposed in the UK to increase salary thresholds for skilled workers and is tailored to the specific labour requirements of the island. The Jersey Immigration Rules and Work Permit Policy are currently being reviewed in response to the Work Permit Holder Welfare Scrutiny Panel report, and the proposed measures to be introduced by the UK will be considered as part of that work. This will include some consideration about salary thresholds, which were last set in 2018. However, it is not proposed that we will mirror the UK changes, as any changes we make need to be suitable for the Jersey context. The UK's proposed measures to restrict the ability of certain dependents of foreign workers to join them in the UK and other visa changes will also be considered further in the local context before any changes to the Jersey immigration rules or work permit policy are introduced.
Supplemental question, Deb?
Thank you, sir. I thank the Minister because that's reassuring that we can make our own choices on this. Just to confirm that those visas that are issued by the UK won't limit what Jersey can do as an island in order to meet the needs of our workforce requirements at any time. Thank you, sir.
I thank the Deputy for his question. Our work permit policy and our Jersey immigration rules are unique to Jersey. There are elements of those that we have to take into account, particularly regarding visas and those issues around the Nationality Act, which is extended to Jersey. But other than that, we do have some leeway in deciding what we want to do for our local context.
Deputy Tadeo.
Is the Minister aware that there may be some evidence that salary thresholds for skilled workers may have an unintended consequence of actually acting as a standard or indeed ceiling for those who work in those industries? And if she is or isn't aware of that, would she give consideration as to actually how effective those salary thresholds are and whether they're indeed needed, given that surely it could be down to the free market to determine the level of salaries paid to those on work permits and skilled jobs?
There are certain salary thresholds in place for certain skilled workers who come in on a skilled visa. As I said, the rules and the work permit policy are currently under review, and those are the sort of issues that will be considered during that review.
So,
Yes.
would the Minister go further and perhaps in the wider piece of work that's going on equal pay between men and women, does she agree that there should really just be a general principle of equal pay for equal work, whether or not one person is on a work permit and another person isn't on a work permit? Does she agree as a principle that that should apply across the different bands?
I thank the Deputy for the question. I wouldn't want to conflate matters of equal pay with the work permit policy, but what I would say, and what I have made clear, is that if you have two people working in a particular role, one of whom is on a work permit and one of whom is not, there should be no discrepancy between those wage limits.
Final supplementary, Deputy Ward.
No, thank you, sir.
Very well. We come to question 8. That Deputy Porre will ask for the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Regarding the single-use plastic restriction, Jersey Law 2021, will the Minister advise whether consideration has been given to a total ban of plastic bags, and if not, why not? Thank you.
Minister.
Sir, thank the Deputy for a question. Before I start, I'd just like to explain that I'm not able to be present this morning just due to COVID isolation. I'd like to offer my apologies to not be able to be there to answer the Deputy's question directly. Returning to the question, it was before my time, but I understand that consideration was given to a total ban on plastic bags whilst the legislation was being developed. And those at the time did a lot of research with other jurisdictions and elsewhere in the world, and they consulted locally with retailers to learn a little bit about what sort of bags were in use and what they were used for. It quickly became clear that if they banned every type of bag, it was going to cause a lot of problems, not least for uses like bin liners and less savoury uses like cleaning up after dogs and disposing of nappies. So a decision was taken to exclude certain types of bags from the legislation, certainly in the first instance, and this was intended to make the whole thing workable. I think without those exceptions, we'd have found pretty difficult, sir. So that's why we are where we are. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Porre.
Thank you, sir. Yes, the principle of the restriction on plastic law has actually not stopped, has not been fit for purpose. The idea was to stop the circulation of single plastic use. As I'm aware, it's still available in every single shop you go to, but the difference is now the consumer is paying for it. So does the Minister agree that this law has gone wrong somehow and really needs immediate attention possibly? Thank you.
Minister.
Unfortunately, I can't agree with the Deputy that the law legislation has gone wrong. To be honest with you, I don't know what the figures are, but as a person who shops regularly themselves, I see an awful lot more people taking reusable bags to do their shopping. So I think it's had a pretty profound effect. That would be my unqualified view of it at the moment. I'm perfectly happy to take another look at this, and it's a shame that the Deputy hadn't contacted me in the first instance, because we could have sat down and taken a look at it together. And I'd invite the Deputy to stay in touch with me on the matter because obviously she has a particular concern, and I'm very happy to look at it, sir.
Well, Deputy Taddeo.
Thanks, sir. Sir, does the Minister agree that plastic bags are not the only type of single-use plastic that are an issue in Jersey? And does he agree that one area to look into might be making those who import and sell single-use plastics, one might think of cucumbers wrapped in cling film or courgettes that are wrapped in other packaging when they could be sold loosely, should be made both financially and morally responsible for the cost and the practicality of their disposal?
So I think the Deputy makes a very good point. As I say, I'm a shopper myself, and I notice these sort of things, and they irritate me. But I come from a background of dealing with retailers for a long period of time, and when you look at the fact, when you consider the fact that we're supplied in the main by UK retailers, I have to say it would be very, very difficult for them to make specific. In fact, it would be impossible for them to make specific arrangements with things that are so systemised in order to service Jersey's needs. So, say for the items that get packed locally in plastic, I think we've got very little control over that. So much as I might like to see some of those things changed.
Supplemental.
Sir, although I'm younger than the Deputy and the Minister, I remember a time when one could take bottles back and get a 5 or 10 pence refund. Does the Minister think that maybe we should look to the past and try and put an inherent value on packaging, particularly when it's cans, bottles, and actually incentivise, or with carrot or stick, the return of packaging, so that if you buy a can of a fizzy drink from the shop or soft drink, you can then return it to the shop and you get some money back for your packaging?
So I think I'd have to refer the Deputy to my previous answer. A lot of these things are very desirable, but in the real world, they're not terribly achievable. We are looking at improving our recycling on the island in any event. We're coming up with a package of measures, hopefully during the course of next year. But there are limitations. I'm certainly happy to take lead in areas where we can actually do something. But I make the point again that when you're supplied by UK retailers, where the supply chain is exceptionally systemised, it really is a difficult thing to do, sir.
Just remind members the question is about single-use plastic bags and not more generally recycling. Yes, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. I'm so tempted to say I hope the package of measures is in a plastic package of measures, but there we go. So can I ask the Minister, one of the very important points raised by Deputy Poirot was the fact that perhaps this law has gone slightly wrong. And I'll give the Minister an example. If you get a takeaway and support our local restaurants by having a takeaway, you are charged 70 pence for the bag because they have to charge you for the bag in which they put your takeaway. Do you think this is an example where the law has gone wrong and it's just adding a price for consumers? And where does that money go to? Thank you, sir.
The Deputy raises another couple of interesting points, and I'll have to raise my hands and say I don't really know where that money goes, and there does seem to be something wrong in that regard. Without access to figures as to what sort of money gets collected and how much is involved, it's difficult for me to make any further comment. All I can commit to doing, Sarah, is to looking into it and coming back to the respective deputies with whatever information I can find out, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy Ward?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir. Well, in relation to alternative types of packaging, will the Minister ensure that applies to T-shirts, sir? Because I asked because today I received my Reform Jersey T-shirt, sir, in a plastic bag, sir. Thank you.
I'm not sure that you have to answer that question.
No, I think I'll take that as a statement, shall I? It was a large ask for a medium, just for...
Deputy Sutherland.
That's now two occasions when the Minister has said, I don't have the numbers. Will the Minister commit himself to getting the numbers so we can have a rational discussion around the extent to which single-use plastic bags are in use?
I do believe that I committed to doing exactly that, sir. I will say this, it's also going to be a very difficult task because it's going to involve lots of different retailers with lots of different types of bags. So I'm at this point in time, I'm not exactly sure how we'd capture that information, but as explained, I'm certainly happy to have a go at it, sir.
Supplemental question? Final supplementary, Deputy Poirot.
Thank you, sir. I would like to say it's quite disappointing to hear the Minister say that it's almost impossible to actually stop the producing of the plastic, single-use plastic. That was my question. I have just been recently to Africa, two different countries, and actually the governments in Kenya and Morocco they not allowed for the production of such plastic bags, single-use plastic bags. When we are in a country where we have a much more knowledge and ability to stop those things and become more sustainable, to hear that that is not possible is a bit disappointing. But yes, does the Minister agree, at least in principle, that this policy can be improved upon? And if so, would the Minister like to meet up with me and carry on this conversation outside the chamber? Thank you.
Sir, I'm sorry, but I believe I've answered the sort of second two parts of those questions. I've already said that I'm happy to talk to any deputies or constables that are concerned about single-use plastic. I've committed to get as much information as I possibly can. And as to the deputy's disappointment, well, I don't like to disappoint people, but I'm afraid I live in the real world as we all do. And like I said, I do know a little bit about supply chains. And if we think we're going to persuade people like Waitrose, for example, or Morrison's to stop their supply chain to strip plastic off cucumbers, or the sort of plastic that ties two boxes of tissues together for Jersey, I'm afraid I have to disappoint people. These things are simply not possible, as desirable as they may be.
We come to question 9, that Deputy Farnham will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir. Following the Minister's responses to oral question 166/2023, will the Minister detail what actions, if any, she is taking to include Jersey in the £42 million prostate cancer screening trial funded by both the National Institute of Health and Care Research and the Prostate Cancer UK charity that is due to begin in early 2024?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to the Deputy for his question. What I can say is that screening teams in both Jersey and Guernsey are awaiting confirmation from the National Institute for Health and Care Research as to whether we are eligible for inclusion in this trial. The research centre tends to focus more on established NHS trusts, but this is something that we are very keen to participate in. However, should we not be considered eligible, we will certainly follow developments in this area closely, and our lead consultant for our screening board will be updating fellow clinicians as regularly as possible. In the event that we're able to pursue the screening process, provisions will be made in HCS to secure the sufficient resources and staffing, which will be likely through the radiology department. This, of course, would rely on additional funding for the service, and as such will be something that the Treasury Minister and I will need to discuss further.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
No, thank you, sir. I just thank the Minister for her answer and wish her well with her endeavours and hope we can get this up and running as soon as possible. Thank you.
Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister, it was disappointing that in the recent cancer strategy, which is welcomed, that screening for prostate cancer was not there, seeing as it affects 1 in 8 men, and it's many more in Afro-Caribbean men, for example. Can the Minister reassure that the tests that we do have are encouraged for men to go and get, because early diagnosis is so important?
Thank you, sir. Yes, I can agree with the statement that the Deputy has just made. I mean, every effort is being made to support people to access screening services. And as you've just heard, we do have a screening board who keeps regular oversight of this.
Supplemental question?
Thank you, sir. Just the Minister, there is some providers, I'll use that way, where they may say that the PSA test is not relevant, and would the Minister publicly state whether she feels that it is actually a useful test for men to have as an indicator early on in diagnosis? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Certainly I would be supportive of any evidence that suggests that it's for the benefit of patients. I do know that the National Screening Committee have also commissioned a review of the evidence. So obviously when that review has been concluded, we'll have some more further detail on the efficacy and the efficiency of some of these tests.
Final supplementary, Deputy Farnham. Well, we come to question 10. That Deputy Taddy will ask for the Minister for the Environment. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister commit his support to the delisting and demolition of the former La Folly Inn? And if not, will he explain why not and state his vision for the future of this building?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. And if I may start by apologising for not being present in the chamber. I have a chest infection, and I think it best, particularly in deference to those who sit near me, that I attend remotely. Turning to the question, I can't support delisting and demolition of La Folly because it would be inappropriate to do so. I need to avoid prejudicing my position in case there is a future appeal relating to the site, whether that relates to a planning application or to delisting. What I can say is any demolition proposal would need to be considered within the context of a request to delist the building and require a justification as to why it is no longer of special architectural or historical interest. Vacancy and disrepair are not reasons to remove a building from the list. The management of change to any listed building or place is best considered through the process of a planning application, and any such proposal would be judged against the relevant policies of the Bridging Island Plan. My own view about the future of La Folly Inn, as it is about any vacant listed building, is that it should be brought back into a viable use, whether as a pub or something else, to ensure its sustainable long-term maintenance and to protect its heritage significance. There have been many successful examples of this kind of repurposing, and I hope that as Ports of Jersey continue with their development plans for the harbour, they will bring forward proposals that safeguard the future of La Folly.
Supplemental, Deputy Taddy.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there was a question posed way back in 2009 by a fellow St Brelard deputy of which the Minister and I now represent, which said that La Folly Quay is currently being master planned by Jersey Harbours, Webb and Property Holdings with the intention of maximising the greater value of the whole site for maritime leisure, marine leisure in the long term. So that's already 14 years ago. And Deputy Power was asking why the site had already been vacant for 6 years. So when the Minister says that he wants to see the site repurposed possibly as a pub, can I ask what active steps and conversations he's had with fellow ministers and maybe Ports of Jersey to actually make sure that we don't have to wait another 14 years before we get the same answer from a future Environment Minister?
So there's a fair comment there in a way. It is disappointing when buildings stay out of use for so long. What I can say is that the redevelopment of La Folly does form part of the Harbour Master Plan. A public consultation was undertaken in the autumn of 2022, and I'm told that it has recently been agreed that the Ports Policy Ministerial Group have decided that Ports of Jersey will undertake a high-level request for information exercise commencing in January to find out to find out if there's interest in the development of visitor accommodation on the Folly site, as well as the restoration of the former public house. So I would say that work is planned. I think it's also fair to say that for Ports, the redevelopment of the Elizabeth Harbour is the absolute priority at the moment, but they are also undertaking work to progress the redevelopment of La Folly.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister express his views on whether what's happened with La Folly is actually indicating that the system by which government seeks to protect historic buildings is essentially broken because they can simply be allowed to deteriorate and in the end will be demolished anyway?
So I wouldn't call it broken. I think we have a system whereby there is, in extreme circumstances, as was mentioned by Deputy Jeune in the last sitting, order powers to prevent, to bring derelict buildings, to improve derelict buildings, to make them safe and so on. But it is the preferred method to work with the owners of property to find ways to redevelop them. And there have been many successful examples of this type. We've done it at a very large scale, where you can think of turning a Victorian fort into a leisure centre, or a Jesuit college into an educational establishment, or an educational establishment into housing. And we've also done it at on many small-scale examples. So the aim is to work with the owner of a property to bring it back into use.
Supplemental question?
Yes, please, sir. Would the minister not accept that the actual approach he's taking in terms of conservation area so far suggests that he thinks government should be giving handouts to owners of these buildings, and whether in fact this is a sustainable way of supporting our architectural heritage?
No, so we've moved slightly here onto conservation areas. But the conservation area power that was passed by the last Assembly to give grants is the same as for listed buildings. And it is a power that exists as a theoretical power. It requires money to be allocated through the government plan for it to actually happen. And as was pointed out in the previous Assembly, that hasn't been the case for some years. In fact, I think the last grant was given some 10 years ago for listed buildings. So I don't think that we have a problem. The problem we have there is not being able to give money where we might want to do so. If we bring the subject back to La Folie, I think it would be a stretch, a very great stretch, to expect the public to put money forward to the redevelopment of La Folie when it is owned by Ports of Jersey, who have income streams which they can utilise, and a very large estate where they would be able to find resources. I would expect within their operating budgets and so on to be able to fund that once they have come up with a scheme that safeguards the long-term future of the site.
Conor Hobson-Savin.
Thank you, sir. I did ask a question in the last Assembly meeting, sir, regarding La Folie and the Sea Scouts. Does the Minister have a timeline for the redevelopment of the La Folie area? And does he not only believe that organisations like the Sea Scouts should be provided for, as it would make an excellent parade ground in the directly in front of it, and it shouldn't just be about profits for Ports of Jersey? Thanks, sir.
So, as I say, I think the indications are that ports will be asking for expressions of interest in terms of use of the site in the future, as in starting in the new year. I haven't asked them about the question of Sea Scouts. I'm happy to do so, and I know the Constable has a particular interest in this area, and I'd be very happy to include him in those discussions. I think it feels like something that should be taken up with ports in more detail. It may be that there's an appropriate solution there. It may be that there are appropriate solutions elsewhere.
Supplementary question? Well, final supplementary, Deputy Taddy.
Yes, I believe that there is a wider vision for this area which can stretch from the Weybridge right through commercial buildings to where La Folie Inn is, up to Fort Regent, which could be Jersey's new cultural quarter if the government had the vision to do that. So will the Minister agree to look into creative thinking which may involve direct government support? And would he also look into the fact that La Folie could be reacquired by government directly, that conversations could be had with Highlands College and the construction industry to rebuild La Folie and to run it as a direct department of Highlands College for the hospitality faculty to bring much needed practice expertise and a revenue stream back into that area, sir?
There's quite a bit there, sir, but if we focus on the La Folie related element, I'm not sure I would agree that it would be appropriate for the government to take it back into use. It's worth remembering that the listing of La Folie is complemented by other listings, for example, of the English and French harbours, and they form a unit. And to have those under single ownership feels to me to be a good thing, and abstracting one of them from it, and therefore putting it into a different sort of set of strategic priorities and so on, doesn't feel like the right way to go forward. I think we do have to wait for Ports of Jersey to come forward and say what they think their vision is for that. That is something which will obviously then be open for consultation, and I think it will be very interesting to see what thoughts that stimulates. And I don't particularly want to prejudge that at the moment, but we do have arm's length organisations charged with doing that work for us. And as I say, because I do think it is part of a unified site extending and covering quite a large area, that it is appropriate for it to stay under one ownership and for it to be developed in that way.
Very well. We come now to question 11 that Deputy Scott will ask of the Minister for Social Security.
Thank you, sir. Regarding the deferral of social security payments by employers from the COVID-19 pandemic to date, will the Minister state the total number of employers who have benefited from these deferrals and the highest number of employees of any single employer for which deferral of the payments was agreed?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. 1,176 businesses and employers benefited from the deferral of social security contributions. Social security contributions were deferred for the first 2 quarters of 2020 for all companies with less than 80 employees. Those with more than 80 employees could also benefit from the deferral, but would have needed to apply. Different employers were in the scheme for different periods of time, and many deferred part of their contribution liability rather than the full amount due, relating to both part-time and full-time staff. As a result, officials are unable to conclusively state, without diverting significant resources, the highest number of employees for any single employer. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott.
Yes, please, sir. Regardless of whether the Minister has the figures at hand or not, and whether Deputy Southern feels she should or not, would she be able to express this as a percentage of total employers? Yeah, I'll leave it at that, since it seems that just referring to the different sizes of workforce is a difficulty for her department.
So I don't know it's a question of difficulty, it's just what information you record and when and why. And I'm sorry, I've lost the track of her questions.
Something about expression as a percentage, but I have to say that I didn't entirely...
I do not have that number, 1176, as a percentage of businesses as a whole. We'll have businesses of all types, from huge employers to sole traders. I don't have that number to hand, but if she would like it, I'm sure it can be obtained. Thank you.
Well, we come to question 12 that Deputy Porrier will ask of the Minister for Infrastructure.
Thank you, sir. In relation to the 70p charge imposed on the sales of reusable bags, will the Minister advise what consideration, if any, has been given to the profits made from the sales of such bags and the options for those profits to be donated to environment causes? And if not, will the Minister please say why not? Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Deputy Porrier, for that question. I'm reliably informed that paragraph D of P64/2020 proposed all retailers would be required, or should be required, to give their the profits of the sales of plastic bags to environmental charities. But after considerable discussion, it was decided that it really wasn't a feasible option. Because of the difficulties involved in identifying what was being sold, how they would get hold of the money, and it also wasn't deemed appropriate for the government to be deciding upon which charitable environmental causes to give the money to. So it was rejected in 2020, sir.
Supplementary question.
Yes, forgive me to say that, sir, but that in principle seems to be so wrong. Again, going back to the single use of plastic bags, the law came in to look at how the impact of the environment these bags are making, and by reducing them, that would be the way forward. We are carrying on producing them, we are charging, and the companies...
Deputy, this does have to be a question.
Okay, so would the Minister be prepared to look at it again, because presently it looks like the companies and businesses are making money out of the environment? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I agree with the sentiment of what Deputy Porrier has to say. We're still confronted with the difficulties. We've had some questions earlier on about plastic bags, and I've committed to looking at all of this. And I think if the Deputy goes to her computer or her phone, she'll find that there's already an invitation to meet me. I certainly hope there is. And we're going to get on and look at it, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Tadier.
Will the Minister say whether he supports the principle of 70p charge for these bags?
Well, I certainly think it's sensible to try and prevent people from using plastic. It irritates me as much as it irritates other people, sir.
So I don't think he's answered the question, to be fair. I don't want to use a supplementary, sir, given the fact he's not answered.
Well, no, fine. I mean, if the question is, do I support the principle? Yes, I thought I'd made it clear. But if the word yes is required, then yes, it is.
Thank you, sir. And can I drill down into that? Because I very much see this 70p charge is not for paying for a bag, but it's a fine that you pay, a social fine for forgetting your bag for life. So given the fact that he does support a 70p charge for a bag, what other charges does he support for other single-use plastics that come from shops? And if he doesn't support them, will he explain his rationale, sir?
Well, I've been caught on the hop a little bit here, so I'm not quite sure what the deputy is referring to. If the deputy would like to be specific about what other types of plastic bag or plastic usage that's particularly caught his interest, I'll try and give a specific answer. But I don't really consider that question was sufficiently specific for me to find an answer to, sir.
I think the specificity of the question is probably a matter for me, Minister. I have to say that it does seem to me to be outside the purview of the original question, which is the 70p charge imposed on the sale of reusable bags and whether those profits should be returned to environmental causes. I think if we're going wider than that,
So may I ask, it clearly flows on from the question, so it's not a complete non sequitur. I'm asking about the rationale for the Minister's support for this policy, which he says he does support. And he did say in his answer that he supports the reduction of all plastics. So I want to know where does his support for charging for single-use plastics end, sir? But if we can't answer that now, that's fine.
I'll try and say where does it end? It's a very, very broad subject, sir, and not one that I think that can be the subject of discussion questions with notice. I don't think it's appropriate. If Deputy Tadier would like to join Deputy Porre and I when we meet, I'd be delighted to meet with him too, sir.
So thank you, but I'll wait till he's better.
Hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah. Deputy Sutton.
That was the most resigned tone I've heard for a while. I suppose I've got to ask Deputy Sutton to ask the question.
I wouldn't assume that it was a reference to you, Deputy Sutton. The resignation of the tone could easily have been referring to something else.
Absolutely, sir. The question is, when the Minister says this idea was rejected, did he mean rejected by retailers or rejected by the government?
Rejected by the government, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy Sutton? Final supplementary, Deputy Porre. Very much. We come then to question 13. Deputy Southern will ask for the Minister for Social Security. Deputy.
I think we might squeeze a bit more out of this particular question. Further to the adoption of P78 of 2022 and her agreement to investigate options to convert the minimum wage to a living wage in Jersey and report back to the Assembly before the end of December 2023, which is now, will the Minister advise what progress has been made, if she has considered the concept of minimum income standards, and what comparison will be made in her paper with other jurisdictions?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for his question. I can confirm the information provided earlier by the Chief Minister that the report set out in P78 is in the final stages of preparation and will be filed with the Assembly before the end of this year. I can also confirm that the report will include information on the use of minimum income standards by voluntary organisations in other countries and an international summary of living wage campaigns. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Can I follow that up as well with further information as to what charitable organisations concerned with poverty issues were consulted in arriving at the policy, which we'll see at some near future time?
I don't recollect which charitable organisations were consulted. I know we've gone to the Employment Forum, which is the right thing to do for matters regarding the minimum wage. I don't recollect how widely our consultation went. It will be clear in the report. Thank you.
Well, Deputy Tanya.
Thanks. Does the Minister agree that it is difficult to consider issues around the living wage without also considering the issue of living rents?
So the two things are not part of, rent is not part of my remit, and I don't believe the report on the living wage and minimum wage will consider rent.
Does the Minister agree that when reports have come forward looking at those living in relative low income, that one of the biggest stresses to that income and to that is actually the amount of rent and the household, the homes and accommodation that they have to pay for? So could she explain how indeed they can be decoupled?
So I think that's a difficult question to answer, because in Jersey, aside from the minimum wage, we also have income support, and income support will help people who are in rental stress.
Deputy Mezek.
Thanks, sir. The Minister said she couldn't quite recall what charities might have been consulted with on this work. Is she really not able to recall whether Caritas was engaged with, given that the role that they've played on the island as a leading authority when it's come to this particular campaign and the contacts that they have with economists elsewhere to calculate what the living wage is, and were their expertise not called upon to help with this review?
So there's a very wide question as to moving between minimum wage and living wage. We've looked at a number of comparisons. I think Caritas is certainly mentioned in the report, but the work was largely conducted by officers, and I would suggest it really would be better, given that the report will be here very shortly, for people to wait till they've read the report rather than prejudge its contents. Thank you.
Supplemental.
Thank you, sir. I don't think anyone's prejudged the contents. We were trying to find out what the contents are. So would the Minister therefore inform the Assembly whether she intends, when that report is published, to engage with Caritas so that they can benefit from their expertise on what might be questions of implementation or how to reach some of the more hard to find people in our community suffering from financial vulnerability, and will she endeavour to make that a matter of priority?
So again, I think until the report's out, there's not much point of having hypothetical discussions.
Final supplementary, Deputy Sutton.
I can't squeeze any more out of this question than that. No, sir. Thank you.
Very well, we come now to question 14, that Deputy Mezek will ask of the Minister for Housing and Communities. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister state whether he will meet the timeline set in his delivery plan to lodge a new residential tenancy law in Q4 of this year, and if not, why not?
So I thank the Deputy for his question. It is my intention to submit draft legislation for a new residential tenancy law in Q3 2024. I believe the Deputy knows that the new law will not be submitted according to the timeline he's referenced. Therefore, it is not immediately clear to me why he has asked the question. But I will nevertheless take the opportunity to provide some background. So in November 2022, I proposed nomination of chair and members of the Rent Control Tribunal, but this proposition was paused through a reference back process in the States Assembly out of concern about the scope and powers available in the Rent Control Tribunal in the modern context. After a period of reflection, I decided to withdraw the proposition to reappoint the Rent Control Tribunal early this year, and instead take a more holistic and less piecemeal approach to residential tenancy reform, which I hope is the approach the Deputy continues to favour. So I decided to widen considerably the relatively narrow scope of the original planned update of the residential tenancy law developed under the previous Council of Ministers. My proposed expansion includes bringing social housing into the scope of the law, incorporating a housing tribunal with a wider remit, looking at the best means of bringing in rent stabilisation and better alignment with public health and safety legislation. So given the importance and scale of these changes, I published a white paper in April this year setting out my reform proposals. It was at this point I made clear that we had moved on from the original intention to do something more narrow in scope by the end of this year, clearly stating that new draft law would not be ready before spring 2024 because of its widened scope. I subjected my proposals to the scrutiny of a public consultation, which ended in June this year. During the consultation, I engaged directly with islanders and listened to their views. The results of the consultation will be published soon, and I will take them into consideration in developing draft legislation. So due to the scale of engagement with...
Sorry, I must ask you to finish your question or finish your answer. You've already been 30 seconds over.
Oh, sir, one half paragraph to go, sir. Okay.
Well, I don't know how long that'll take you, dear.
Okay, shall I stop there?
Yes,
Would you prefer me to stop there? Okay, sir.
Yes. Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. The Minister just referred to the results of the consultation being published soon. So when is soon? And can he confirm when he is intending a new residential tenancy law to be in operation for everybody to benefit from?
Thank the Deputy for his question. So the consultation process has now completed. We have a draft report has been produced, which is being reduced in size because we want to be very, very clear about what we've been told by those we've engaged with. We have to be very, very careful here, sir, with this law because just under 50% of all people in this island are renters. And if we get this law wrong by being too hasty, we will do them a great disservice.
Sir, he didn't attempt to answer the second part of my question, which was when we're looking at for a timeline for that law being in force.
Thank you, sir. And I just would like to reference my delivery plan for the Minister for Housing in 2024. We will develop and present law drafting instructions that will improve rental accommodation standards and provide enhanced protections for both tenants and landlords. Updated law drafting instructions were submitted in Q3 2023 for draft legislation Q3 2024.
Yes,
So that sounds like draft legislation before the end of the year, if I...
But, sir, my question was about when the law would be enforced. You can pass a law and say it doesn't come into force for a time period afterwards. I'm trying to...
I think your question was, is there any intention to defer the coming into force of the law once the Assembly adopts it? Was that the question? Are you able to answer that without...
No, sir, because of the scale of the consultation process and the scale of the law.
Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Given that we have a housing crisis on the island and housing is one of the areas of the government's relentless focus, does the Minister feel that he has enough resource within his policy team in order to pass the necessary legislation in a timely manner to make real effective change that islanders so need?
I do, sir.
Supplemental question there, Deputy?
Thank you, sir. I am surprised to hear the Minister's answer, given that the legislation has been delayed. Could he then confirm how much resource is laid out within the government plan for this policy and legislation work? And what arguments he may have made to other ministers around the table of the Council of Ministers to ensure that the right level of resources is in place to lead to meaningful action quickly for islanders.
Sorry, sir, I'm just trying to unpack that question. The law drafting instructions were underway prior to me becoming Housing Minister, so that gives some idea of the scale of the law. In terms of resources, I believe we have the correct amount of resources. I haven't had to fight with other ministers to gain more resources. And as far as I'm aware, I'm perfectly satisfied that the level of resource we currently have is perfectly adequate to deliver the law in the time frame as I've laid out.
Final supplementary, Deputy Mezek. Very well, we come to question 15 that Deputy Ward will ask of the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, will the Minister advise what involvement, if any, she had in the decision regarding the £47,000 extra saving from the States of Jersey Police put forward in the 33rd Amendment to the proposed Government Plan 24-27 and linked to funding for farming? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his question. In order to fund what the Assembly agreed in adopting P74 earlier this year, the Council of Ministers have lodged an amendment to the Government Plan to increase the value for money commitments required of departments. This shouldn't surprise the Assembly. During that debate, just last month, my colleague, the Treasury Minister, stood up and told this Assembly that it would be hard to find the money required. He informed the Assembly that, and I quote, "The hard reality is that there will need to be savings delivered across departments to provide this additional money." My colleague from St Brelard, Deputy Renouf, too rose to his feet and urged members to remember this situation when we're discussing the Government Plan. Quite presciently, he suggested that Deputy Luce may not find quite as much support if he were to be bringing the proposition here to cut 3 million or 4 million off the frontline services. There was an acknowledgement that there would be difficult decisions to be made, and indeed difficult decisions have been made. And that has included the additional value for money commitment for the police and an extra value for money commitment for all of the other emergency frontline services. This was agreed by the Council of Ministers, albeit subject to some robust discussions on my part, and that was how we have arrived at the current position.
Supplementary question.
Thank you, sir. So therefore, can I confirm with the Minister that she has no concerns about this £47,000 being lost from the police, and she agrees with that cut being made? Thank you, sir.
As I said, this was subject to some robust discussions around the Council of Ministers table. I made my views clearly known on behalf of the States of Jersey Police and the other Jersey Home Affairs services to defend our frontline service budget, as my colleagues know that I always will. As ministers with a wide breadth of portfolios, we will approach difficult positions like these with different authorities, and we face difficult challenges. I certainly don't envy the Treasury Minister's challenge in ensuring that he balances the books, but of course he must. I know that he understands the significant challenge I face in keeping this island safe, and I'll be monitoring the impact of this closely, and the Treasury Minister knows that I'll be knocking on his door if I have any concerns at all about public safety. Ultimately, Council agreed this approach as being the best option, given the finite pot of money we have available, and as a member of Council, I support this.
Deputy Felton.
Thank you, sir. I note that the Minister voted in favour of P74 2023. So could the Minister clarify whether she anticipated this cut her department's budget at that time of that vote? I thank you for the question. I did indeed vote in favour of P73. And my feelings there were clear that we need to support the agricultural industry and our fishing industry. I do not agree. I was concerned, actually, not at the time, I was concerned about the process. I was concerned that we were able to have an amendment, a proposition of that nature, given that the government plan had already been lodged. And my feeling was quite clear that any amendment that would have resulted in a reduction in budget available to the government plan should have been brought during this process.
Supplemental question, Deputy Felton.
Thank you, sir. In the Minister's initial answer to the first question, she seemed to suggest that other members should have been aware that this was an eventuality when they made that, a potential eventuality, when they made that vote on the initial proposition. So why did ministers not provide such information in the comments paper to enable members to make a more informed decision at that time? And is she saying that ministers did not decide at that point, or had not decided at that point, where the cuts were going to come from?
I said in the initial part of my question, I find it difficult to believe that members were not aware. The Treasury Minister made it abundantly clear that the money would have to come from somewhere. And as my colleague Deputy Renouf said, when we're discussing the government plan, we may not find quite as much support if he were to bring a proposition here to cut 3 million or 4 million of frontline services. At the point that I think members agreed that proposition, the government plan had already been lodged, and it was evident that it was going to be difficult to find that level of funding as a result of a sideline proposition.
Deputy Meze.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister explain to States members what, if any, indication the police service has given to the Minister for Home Affairs of exactly what this £47,000 cut would entail for them and what they would do to implement that?
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for the question. To date, we haven't had those conversations.
Supplemental question?
Thank you, sir. Does that not then mean this cut meets the definition of a speculative saving, which is precisely what the Fiscal Policy Panel is telling us not to do?
No, I don't agree that it is a speculative saving. There are operational issues, and the next time I meet with the Chief Police Officer, I will discuss with him what we are going to do to attempt to make this extra saving.
Deputy Tadio.
Is the Minister confident that, as we've seen in the past, that this is a potential false economy where we're going to be actually just saving up problems for the future, and that a future Home Affairs Minister may be dealing with the consequences of these very real cuts in 5 or 10 years' time when it comes to issues on the street in Jersey?
And I thank the Deputy for his question. As the current Home Affairs Minister, I can assure him that I'm already dealing with the effects of decisions made by previous assemblies. All I would say to that is, depending on the efficiencies and effectivenesses that we're able to make, they will always be an opportunity for me to try to restore some balance if required in future government plans.
Supplemental question, Deputy Teddy? Final supplementary, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. The Minister mentioned that we perhaps would have been aware of cuts to frontline services when this was passed. So, therefore, can we assume that the £47,000 will be from frontline services? Is that what we're being told? Because you can't have threats of frontline service cuts and then suddenly there won't be frontline service cuts. So which is it?
So the States of Jersey Police are a frontline service. And no matter where the elements of that 47k come from, be that back office, be that forensic services, be that human resources, all of those services contribute to the frontline policing of this island.
Very well. We now move to questions without notice. The first Minister to answer questions is the Minister for Children and Education, and have one moment. Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister explain the reason for the resignation of the well-respected and highly regarded head of Lekeneve School, which I believe was tendered last week?
Thank you for the question, because I did have a very good professional meeting months ago with the head of Lekeneve, and as it was announced, she was going to be the head teacher of St. George's, and it's the change of the career after, and it's her private decision.
Thank you. No supplementary.
Deputy Rob.
I think so. May I ask the Minister whether she'll be supporting Amendment 20 to the government plan that allocates funds to settle the teaching dispute? Thank you, sir.
I think, sir, this is the matter for the debate. This is why we are going into the debate, and we would have our all discussions, and the decision will be made during the vote.
Thank you for the answer. So I'd like to thank the Minister for the answer. Can I therefore confirm that there isn't a government position, a council minister's position on that amendment, and that there is a free vote on whether or not you can accept that amendment? Thank you, sir.
There is always government position, but we also have each member of the government have their manifesto, which was written in the manifesto commitments. So it's really depends where each one is standing. But going back, we are going into the debate, and debate is the debate.
So, I did ask whether there was a government position. Now, the answer was there is and there isn't.
No, there is a government position, and comments for the government position have been submitted. I said the caveat that each of the members of the government, as you know, according to the Council of Ministers Code of Conduct, we are voting with the government as per government position unless you have very clear statement in your manifesto, in your written manifesto, that you're committed to something.
Very well. Any other questions for this Minister? Deputy Mezza.
Thank you, sir. Following on immediately from that question then, could I ask, therefore, if this Minister's manifesto position puts her at odds with the stated government position?
I think we need to sort of wait to the debate and decide, because I would like to hear all presentations, including presentation from Deputy Curtis, because there are things I'm missing from my perspective in the report, and I would like to hear.
Supplemental question to that?
So if you have a manifesto position, was her manifesto position then to have no position until she'd heard what a backbencher had come up with? I'm trying to work out what her position as Minister for Children and Education with her own democratic mandate is, and she says we can have a separate position if it's in our manifesto, and when I asked what that position was, she won't give me one.
I think it's about the democracy, and democracy is to have a proper democratic debate in the chamber.
I think the answer is that the Deputy is not prepared to say what was in her manifesto at this point. Deputy Howell.
There was a consultation with parents and head teachers regarding costs of school uniform, I think earlier this term, and I wonder if the Minister is pleased in a position to give us the results of the survey. Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy, for her questions. First of all, we did have a consultations. The 588 respondents across primary and secondary schools included JCG and VCP responded. 55% of parents were either very dissatisfied or dissatisfied with the current cost of uniform. Majority of parents are spending between 100 to 200 pounds on school uniform per year. And majority of parents advised they felt there were too many branded items and compulsory items, believe that it should be between 1 and 2 items of the branded clothes for the main uniform and 1 and 2 branded or compulsory items for PE uniform.
Supplemental question, Deputy Howell.
Can I just clarify, 588 people responded, but we may have something like 16,000 students? Is that correct? And of those, 266 people were dissatisfied. Thank you, sir.
First of all, it's important to think that some parents, when they respond, they have more than one child. They can have 2, 3, 4 children, and the response will be one response. Second, I have asked now head teachers to follow up, because when the survey was produced, we did have a head teachers dispute, but now head teachers are settled and they can continue, they can do the same survey within the school. On top of this, if Deputy can recollect, every August and September we have BBC and ITV programs for an hour when the parents are saying about the high cost of the uniform, which was very clear public outcry over the last 2 years at least. So, and we also had JCRA report, which has highlighted the numbers of branded and compulsory items. Some schools don't have any, some schools have 1 and 2, and some schools have 17. So the gaps are very, very big, and this is the reason that the new policy will be finalized by the end of this year and published, with 3 years implementation period, that will make sure that the implementation period is long enough to make sure that people who spend the money on the uniform don't need to need to spend new money, and also suppliers can adjust and not lose the money.
Deputy Tadia.
Would the Minister state whether there's a clear whistleblowing policy with regard to children's services and social workers at children's services, so to ensure that if staff raise issues that they consider to be whistleblowing matters, they won't be disciplined or sacked as a result?
As Deputy probably aware, we have government-wide whistleblowing policy. There is no specific for the children's services because once we have the government policy, it's applied for all government employees.
Supplemental question, Deputy Teddy?
Can the Minister therefore assure that if whistleblowers come forward with areas of practice that they think need general or urgent attention, that they'll be listened to and that they won't be put through a disciplinary process?
Absolutely, and it's really important if the public servants, our employees, come into be aware about the wrong practices, I would welcome. Something that's really important to mention, we just finished our inspection. It was independent inspection of our children services, and the staff had an opportunity to speak openly with the inspector about different practices. I'm meeting today at the lunchtime for informal briefing from the head inspector to at least to indicate the impression, and the report would be published on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day, and this is how we can actually all learn, including me, what needs to be changed.
Second question, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, P33, the farming cuts from budget to be established money for farming, sorry sir, not the best explanation I've ever given, details £286,000 from the Minister's budget. Did the Minister offer up these savings or were they offered to her? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy, for the question. As the Minister for Home Affairs, I wasn't a big fan of the particular proposition. I think I have, if Deputy remember, I did speak in the Assembly because personally I felt very strongly that that proposition brought in outside of the process. I realized at the time that some budget will be touched, including mine. Actually, I thought it will be more, but I said it's 200. If I'm happy about it, not. If I'm going to look together with my chief officer what can be done, my point, I'm not ready to cut in the frontline services, and if it's come to that point, I'll be knocking on the door of the Treasury Minister.
Supplemental question, Deputy Ward.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Is the Minister certain that this money can be taken from a budget that is so much under strain when, for example, there isn't enough money for a pay rise for teachers and they have continued strike action?
I'm concerned about other pay groups as teachers as well, like we have teaching assistants, we have other pay groups. We have lots of stress on the budget. At the same time, all of us here in the Assembly, including Deputy Ward, supported extra funding to the hospitality. My point, and this is how I would like to check with the hospitality, and this is maybe where we can do savings, if the Trident program can be extended to, to the agriculture, not to the hospitality. If the Trident program can be extended to the agriculture and the fisheries, if they will take more apprentices into the agriculture and fisheries, how our skills agenda, if we can save something working together with the industry, and actually it will maybe win-win situation. For me, it's to find the solution outside of the box, but not to cut frontline.
Second question, Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Where are those £286,000 of proposed extra savings coming from, and practically what do they mean?
And this is this what will be the meeting with my chief officer and with my finance partner, and to understand what is proposed. I still haven't seen exact where it will come, and this is there are several options, but it's definitely not coming from the front line.
Supplemental question.
So thank you, sir. So we're offered cuts without being told what they are, without even the minister knowing what they are. So does she accept that this amounts to speculative savings, which is exactly what the Fiscal Policy Panel has told the government not to do?
I don't accept, sir, that it's speculative, because we would need to work as Assembly decided, including Deputy Mezek, who decided that we need to find somewhere in the budget.
If there are no other questions for this minister, you have your light on. Would you like your third question?
Please, sir, if
yes,
no one else wants one, sir. So can I ask the minister, therefore, how a cut, which she cannot at this point substantiate to any degree of detail whatsoever, doesn't meet the definition of speculative?
Because there are several options how this saving can be made. And for example, no, I've heard, actually, there are several options how this saving can be made. I give an example. Currently, I have 50% agency and social workers. We are bringing different type of recruitment. The agency social work costs much more than the permanent one. And this is why we're having a reform and making sure that we are recruiting permanent staff. And this is one of the
Supplemental question.
And thank you, sir. That's an excellent example, which I wholeheartedly support, because it is a genuine efficiency and not a cut. Could the minister therefore tell us if this is a new proposed saving for this £286,000, or was it one that was included in her original allocations for the Value for Money programme?
But this is the conversation that's going, that this 200 plus thousand would be part of the Value for Money programme.
Well, Deputy Tadier.
Thank you. Would the minister agree that another part of a speculative arsenal is to say that actually the government's cutting my budget, therefore I'm going to cut some of my services? So, for example, where currently we provide services in children's healthcare, effectively that is something that we believe should be done at the health department, so we're going to discontinue these services and allow those services to be picked up by another department. Are those the kind of lines of thinking that the speculation in the education department is looking towards?
Sir, I'm not entirely sure if this question wasn't speculative, because the from the health department for the children are not connecting to the education, children, young people and education skills budget. So I'm not entirely sure what I can answer apart from we are not cutting services. We actually opened new services this year.
Sorry, that brings the time for questions to this minister to an end, I'm afraid. We now have a period of questions for the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development, and we have the Connétable St Saviour.
Thank you, sir. Members are aware, sir, that food is going up month by month, if not week by week. Lots of people feeling the pinch and having to go to food banks. Further to this, sir, we've been informed that as of 1st of January, that shipping could possibly go up by as much as 19%. I'm sure the Minister is onto this, sir, but would he explain to members what action he will be taking, because this will surely be passed on to consumers? Thank you, sir.
Sir, the Connétable is absolutely correct. We live in a high inflationary environment. The whole world is living in a high inflationary environment at the moment, sir. But I am pleased that it seems that locally inflation appears to have peaked, and the rate of inflation at the last check had come down from 10.9 to 10.1%. That includes interest rates, and so we also expect as interest rates hopefully will fall, inflation will fall further. Sir, I was deeply concerned to read about the large increase in shipping freight prices, sir. And I have written to the to the chief executive of the company concerned, and have asked for justification of those rate rises. Of course, as I've just explained, I do appreciate that all companies at the moment are facing increases in prices, and they will of course pass these on to consumers. Energy, fuel, and so on have been parts of those rate rises, and I will wait and see what the Chief Executive responds, but I imagine things like that will be part of their response. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Conor Tarr.
Yes, thank you, sir. Just to illustrate the point, sir, in my local supermarket, a can of soup, I won't mention the variety, but there's 57 of them, was £1.50, and then £1.60, and now £2, which is absolutely ludicrous. It does illustrate that we must all shop around and use Jersey price comparison, or price comparison JE, to really get value for money. But will the minister use his utmost to keep prices as reasonable as possible? Thanks, sir.
Sir, the pricing that the connétable is seeing in his own supermarket is a reflection of the real world that the connétable also has to live in, sir. And therefore, the inputs into the price of those canned goods that he references have increased in price. The producer, therefore, has to pass that on to the consumer. This is what is happening in the world at the moment, caused by such things as COVID. There is no question in my mind that whilst many of us have forgotten that COVID had such a large impact, the economic effects are being felt now, and we will continue to feel those economic effects for some time. I, of course, have no direct control over pricing, but I do chair the cost of living group of ministers, and we do meet regularly, and we will use whatever very few levers we have, we will use to the best effect, sir. And I will commit to continuing to do that, sir. But as we don't control interest rates and we don't control pricing directly, sir, the levers we have are small. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Scott.
Sir, this was a supplementary.
I beg your pardon?
No, okay, fine.
No,
I shall
I'm
ask
so
mine.
sorry, yeah.
No, fine, I'll
I
ask
don't
the
understand.
question I had.
This is a
Thank you.
question.
Okay.
Just
Sir, I'll ask the question. What action has the minister taken this year that he can demonstrate has grown the economy?
Sir, a wide variety of actions have been taken throughout the year by officers on my behalf, principally within strategies that have already begun, such as the Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategy, where we are seeing an increase in activity within arts, culture and heritage. Obviously, the rural and marine economy strategies have also been put into play. We are currently working on the visitor economy strategy, sir. That in itself will be seeking to provide guidance for greater investment in the local economy and for increasing the number of tourists that come over here. Sir, through Visit Jersey, over the past year, we have seen increased numbers of tourists that have grown, that have helped grow the economy in that way. We've obviously also seen the good work of the Home Affairs Minister in enabling tourists from France to come here with their identity cards. That in itself enabled an 80% increase or thereabouts in the amount of day trip tourists to Jersey, thereby increasing the economy as well, sir. Sir, there are thousands of businesses in this island that I am incredibly proud to represent as Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Every day they are working to grow the economy of this island. And every day I am working on my side, as we have just seen with the publication of the Breaking the Barriers to Business report, on creating an enabling environment that will help those businesses thrive and therefore provide greater economic output and therefore enable us to meet the cost of rising healthcare and social care costs in the 15, 20 years ahead, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott.
Yes, please, sir. My question was, how can the minister demonstrate he has grown the economy, with government's own figures indicating that the economy has shrunk outside the financial sector by 4% in real terms? How does the minister, and with the minister having just referred to work on reports, how can he demonstrate that any actions taken by his officers have actually grown the economy?
Sir, it is quite clear to me that with a 6.7% increase in GVA 2022 over 2021, that the economy has grown nearly 7%, sir. There are different cycles within any economic environment. We are coming out of the back of Brexit, and we are coming out of the back of COVID, sir. What the Economy Department has been doing over the past 2 years is focusing on stabilisation and providing the direction that various sectors outside of the financial services sector have asked for. So we have been asked for strategies to provide North Stars, as people often say, for tourism, for rural and marine, for arts, culture and heritage, for sport. These are the pieces of work that we are doing, sir, for the digital economy. These are the pieces of work that we are doing, sir. Those strategies are then put into implementation and delivered. Through there, we will see growth, economic growth. That is the intention. And once those strategies have had time to be embedded, I will then be able to turn around and speak to the Deputy and point to her exactly how these strategies have helped grow the economy. But you cannot have a strategy without first working on it and drafting it and publishing it, sir.
Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir. Back to Condor, which is a subject I know a bit about. Minister and I worked or wrestled with it for a number of years. Sir, was the recently announced 19% increase in freight discussed with the Minister or any of his team, as I believe is a requirement of the contract which they're currently under, before it was implemented?
Thank you, sir. I don't believe it was discussed. I believe it was notified, and as a result of that notification, I have written to the Chief Executive of the company asking for justification, sir.
Thank you, sir. As Minister will know, the Condor are currently working through a notice period, and their agreement is due to expire in August of next year, which will be upon us very soon, sir. Can the Minister provide reassurance to the Assembly that plans are in place to either renew Condor's contract with something that is perhaps more suitable and gives the Minister more control than the current agreement, or there are other arrangements in place, given the essential nature of the supply links they provide?
Thank you, sir. Just a small correction, if the Deputy doesn't mind. The operating agreement ceases at the end of March 2025, not August 2024. So March 2025 is the deadline that we are working to, sir. And I can confirm that this is a piece of work that I am seriously engaged in. And the aim of the piece of work is to make sure that we get the best possible ferry services for our island. And that would indeed include an operating agreement that has, in the colloquial, sir, teeth that can ensure that whichever companies are involved in providing ferry services to the island, they can be held to account for operating outside of that agreement. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister confirm whether or not his officers have undertaken any economic impact estimates on the regulatory technology super tax deduction put forward in the government plan? If so, what is the estimated economic output? If not, why not?
Sir, I believe that Treasury will have undertaken those economic impact assessments, as they are the department that has devised those regulatory tax deductions, and I would expect to see that in the report, sir, to the proposition.
Supplementary question, Deputy Feltham.
Yes, sir. I'm not sure where to go with that because I'm quite surprised to hear that answer. Could then the Minister confirm what his assessment of the economic value of the super tax deduction will be, and whether indeed he thinks there is a cost-benefit analysis that he has seen as Minister for Sustainable Economic Development?
Thank you. I'm surprised at Deputy Feltham's surprise, because Deputy Feltham knows I'm not Minister for Financial Services, and the regulatory deduction that she refers to is a reduction in financial services companies, sir. Therefore, it is not an area that I have oversight of. Thank you, sir.
Very well. Deputy Farnham. I beg your pardon, no, you've already had your first turn, Deputy. Deputy Howell.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister explain his views about the 11.1% increase announced by ports for 2024, following the 10% in 2023?
Thank you, sir. I understand that ports have I don't know if leeway is the correct word, sir, but they have the ability through Treasury to put up their prices by RPI plus 1%, so they have a maximum limit to go to. It seems that this year they have done exactly that. As I understand it, Ports was incorporated by the States Assembly in order to self-finance the development of our harbours and airports infrastructure. That money, therefore, certainly needs to come from somewhere because they are not in receipt of taxpayers' money, sir. And the whole exercise, as I understand it, having read through the scrutiny hearings of the day, suggests that Ports, the motivation behind incorporating Ports was to take the development of Ports off the state's balance sheet. Therefore, I can only surmise that one of the reasons that the price rises have been notified by Ports is in order to finance their infrastructure development at both the airport and harbours, as well as, of course, as I referenced in my answer to Constable St Saviour, that every company in Jersey, there is not a single company in Jersey that has not been hit by input price rises, sir, and Ports will be exactly the same.
Supplementary question?
No, thank you, sir.
Very well. Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir. As the Minister's already mentioned, as part of the Future Economy Programme, results of a Barriers to Business report was recently published. Can I ask the Minister if there were any surprises in it and what his headline takeaways were?
Sir, for me, there were no enormous surprises. I had, as someone who's been involved with the business community for many years, I had some idea of where many would think that the main barriers to business are. I thought the biggest takeaway, and it's one that I think we should all learn from, because it doesn't just relate to business, it relates to all areas of our work, was that the key finding, the key area that needed to change was in trust. So this was the big overall finding. Whilst there were 8 recommendations or 8 areas for improving or reducing barriers to business, they were the availability of skills and people, something which I have spoken about here, and I know the Deputy himself is very aware of. Interactions with government, which is somewhere that I definitely expected to see there being problems, because I know the processes, the length of time it takes for processes to be completed within government is just too long, very often, for businesses to be able to cope with. Government administrative processes, logistics and customs, and that is just obviously post-Brexit. It is very difficult trading outside of the UK. Legislation and regulation, sir. Taxes, a lack of vibrancy in St Helier Town Centre, sir, which is something that I, myself, and the Infrastructure Minister and the Constable of St Helier, as well as the Future Places Group, are working on, as well as issues that specifically affect small business and startups. None of those were any huge surprise to me, sir, but I really did think that the big takeaway was trust is vital. Trust between government and businesses, and the breakdown of that trust, or the erosion of that trust over years, has led to higher costs for businesses and slower processes, sir. And it is only as we improve trust that we will see that change. Thank you, sir.
That ends the time for questions to this Minister. The final question period is, of course, the Chief Minister. Deputy Babish.
Sir, will the Chief Minister agree, bearing in mind that the United Kingdom is only beginning to bring its own register of beneficial ownership up to Jersey's very high standard, and bearing in mind also that opening a register to public scrutiny needs careful consideration in the light of the European Court's recent judgment on the implications of so doing from a data protection and human rights perspective, will the Chief Minister agree that accusations in the British House of Commons of Jersey's dishonourable conduct are misplaced and deplorable?
I thank the Deputy for the question. It was certainly a matter of concern to hear some voices in the House of Commons make suggestions and comments that were not accurate about our position here in the islands. Along with my colleagues in the Isle of Man and Guernsey, we have been engaging on this matter as following on from the European Court of the ECJ, the European Court of Justice judgment of last year, and the importance that that placed on protecting identities and information, personal information, that would be in line with the laws that we consider to be of the greatest importance here in the island.
Supplemental question.
So, following on from that, will the Chief Minister confirm that decisions in relation to our register of beneficial ownership will be for the Jersey Government and this Assembly, and not for the UK Government or the House of Commons?
I would most certainly agree with the esteemed deputy, who I know has a deep understanding of our constitutional position.
Very well. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Speaking of constitutional positions, on Friday, the United Nations Security Council voted on a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the unconditional release of hostages. That resolution was vetoed by the United States, but the United Kingdom abstained on it. Speaking from a constitutional position, was the United Kingdom acting on behalf of Jersey when issuing that abstention? And if so, does it reflect the Government of Jersey's position on such a request?
So the Deputy is very much aware of our position as a sub-sovereign nation on such matters. However, the Deputy will also be aware that along with leaders of the faiths in the island, we have come together to show our unity and solidarity and our desire for peace.
Supplemental question?
Thank you, sir. That answer didn't refer to that specific resolution, which of course was what the question was about. But as a sub-sovereign nation, as the Chief Minister described does she agree that Jersey could and should join other sovereign nations within the British family, such as the Government of Scotland, the Mayor of London, the Mayor of Manchester, in breaking from the deplorable position of the United Kingdom on this and adding our voice to those global calls for the unconditional release of hostages and backing a ceasefire, which is the only way to end the human suffering in that area?
So I believe I gave a perfectly adequate answer in my previous answer. So we are not members of the UN, and the Deputy knows why. I go back to my previous answer and express my desire in the island to work with all faith leaders to show that this island is a place where we are a peaceful and respectful community, and we work with other places. Just last week, I met with the Crown Prince of Bahrain and members of his cabinet who were grateful for our expressions of unity and solidarity and the approach that has been taken here in the island.
Deputy Teddy.
Would the Chief Minister explain when she says that the government seeks peace in that area? I'm sure that is a very universal desire, but it's also quite an anodyne expression of hope for the area. Could she explain what she hopes that will happen in the area and what she believes Jersey could be doing using its own, albeit sovereign voice on this important issue to bring around that peaceful solution?
I can only revert back to my previous statements that we as a small sub-sovereign nation are happy to work with others in expressing our desire for peace the world over. That is something that we can do in small ways and
yeah, could the Minister, perhaps as a supplementary, what are those small ways that we could show that desire for peace?
So the words of Sir Keir Starmer, I think, are rattling around in my mind. I think he said at his party conference that protest does not achieve power. Sir, I would wholly agree with Sir Keir on this point. I believe that by being respectful, by drawing together in peace, that we can express our desire for that and use soft power as we have able at our disposal.
The second question, Deputy Messing.
Thank you, sir. I note the Chief Minister quoting a fellow Thatcherite there. Sir, could I ask the Chief Minister, and this is a constitutional question, it's no more than that, whether her declining of taking a different position to that expressed by the United Kingdom, which is one of abstaining on motions in support of releasing hostages and having a ceasefire, is that because she personally believes in that position of abstention on such a matter, or is it because she doesn't feel that it's appropriate for Jersey's government to deviate from the position of the United Kingdom?
Sir, I believe I have answered this question, that we have made our statement because of our unique position, and that is the position. We have in our previous statement called for pauses in hostilities so that aid could be given to those who needed it, and that period has been put in place, and that has passed. So it is, as a sub-sovereign nation, not our place to do anything other than that. We do not, and it has been expressed previously in this assembly by myself and by others, we do not have at our disposal the intelligence that would have led to the position that was adopted by the United Kingdom in that vote last week.
A supplementary question.
Thank you, sir. Of course, we were in a position to do that in 2002 when we disagreed with the UK position on the illegal invasion of Iraq, and other sub-sovereign nations in the British family have taken it upon themselves to take different positions. I've mentioned them: the Government of Scotland, the Mayor of London, the Mayor of Manchester. So, sir, the Chief Minister referred to the humanitarian pause there, a pause which has since expired, and the killing has continued. We're now at almost 9,500 children killed by this conflict. Does the Chief Minister believe that Jersey's efforts to alleviate some of the suffering there through the Overseas Aid Commission donations made there are undermined by a position which is widely regarded by many countries around the world as being one that turns a blind eye to violence rather than trying to stop it?
So I think the questions from the Deputy are becoming quite difficult and unnecessary. What I would say is that we have made it very clear that we condemn those who kill children as a rights-respecting place. We consider that children's rights are important, and any person would condemn such acts.
Deputy Tadier.
A moment ago, the Minister said that protest does not achieve power, but does she agree that history is actually full of examples? We can look at Emmeline Pankhurst, who through protest achieved suffrage for women. I noticed in the past the Chief Minister dressed in the suffragettes' colours. That Rosa Parks' protest achieved greater equality for the black community in America. That Nelson Mandela and Gandhi, who did use protest, also used that to finally abolish apartheid in South Africa. So does she accept the fact that actually the purpose of protest isn't always to achieve power, it is actually to change things positively? So would she reconsider her previous position about the value of protest in a democratic society?
I will allow that, not because it goes to the philosophy of protest, but because I take it to be directed to the Chief Minister's answer about specific protest in connection with the matter for which she has responsibility.
I'm grateful to the Deputy for his eloquent history lesson.
So it was a question, though, nonetheless, so it does need an answer of yes, no, or don't know.
The straightforward question was, does the question as posed cause you to review the view you've expressed, Chief Minister?
So I think the Deputy has very eloquently set out a number of alternative examples. Our position is and remains as it is.
Are there any other questions for the Chief Minister? Deputy Farnham.
Well, sir, given recent challenges faced sort of within the Council of Ministers, sir, and it is clear in certain parts, regrettably, there are divisions, is the Chief Minister perhaps planning a cabinet reshuffle early in the new year?
So the place for discussion and disagreement is around the Council of Ministers table. It is absolutely right, and I think the public would expect that we challenge each other's ideas and do that in a respectful fashion. We have made some changes to ministerial responsibilities in recent weeks, and we will constantly be looking at making sure that our ministers and our ministerial team are the best people who can represent what we want to achieve on behalf of the public.
Supplemental question?
Yes, sir. Is the Chief Minister planning on a cabinet reshuffle early in the new year? That actually means changing ministers or changing roles, sir. Thank you.
So I think I answered that question in my last answer.
Well, I'd say that
I'm sorry, sir,
I'm
I
not
must have
sure
missed
that it was answered in terms, Chief Minister, because it was, are you planning on any changes? That was the, and if the answer is yes, then I dare say there'll be further questions. If the answer is no, then I suppose there won't.
So I would say, as I said in my previous answer, that one is constantly looking to ensure that those in positions are there to create the best effect and to meet our commitments to the public.
I'll take that as a yes, sir, because if it had been no, I think that would have been fairly straightforward.
Deputy Meze.
Thank you, sir. Does the Chief Minister have full confidence in all of her current ministers to see out the whole of 2024 delivering on their ministerial plans?
Sir, I have always made it clear that we have a talented, intelligent group of people in ministerial positions. I'm very fortunate to work with each and every one of them who are committed public servants.
But I think the question was specifically, do you have confidence in them? Do I take that answer as meaning that, Chief Minister?
Meaning, yes, sir.
Supplemental question.
So thank you, sir. So just beyond any doubt, then, we can confirm that the Chief Minister has no plans whatsoever to hold a reshuffle at the beginning of next year. Yes or no?
I think the Americans in taking depositions would say asked and answered, and asked the judge to rule that out of order. I think that has been answered by the Chief Minister, Deputy Tallier.
So did the question specifically talk about whether she has full confidence in her Minister for DFI? And could she confirm that she has full confidence in the current Minister for DFI?
Sir, I have said that I fully respect each and every member of the Council of Ministers, and I believe that they all are dedicated public servants.
And that, in fact, brings...
I'll leave it there, sir. Thank you.
Well, there wasn't a choice about that, Deputy, because we've come to the end of the time for questions for the Chief Minister. We now have an urgent oral question to be asked by Deputy Southern of the Chief Minister. I will allow the same nominal time that I would have allowed for ordinary questions, approximately between 9 and 10 minutes per question. So, Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. And I apologise to members for the late call on this particular issue. Further to the recent House of Commons debate led by Dame Margaret Hodge, MP, has there been any renewed pressure on the Chief Minister to follow through with the commitment to publish a public register of beneficial ownership? And what is the current position of the government in relation to such a register?
So the content of debates in Westminster are a matter for the UK Parliament, just as the content of debates in this Assembly are a matter for us. We are aware, however, that during the debate last week, some inaccurate comments were made about Jersey and the other Crown dependencies, including the suggestion that the UK Parliament is able to legislate for us in this area. So that is not the case, and we have reiterated this fact to our colleagues in the United Kingdom. We will continue to engage to ensure that points of inaccuracy that arose in the debate are addressed. So there have been discussions with the UK government for some time on the subject of increasing access to Jersey's register of beneficial ownership. In 2019, the Crown Dependencies made a commitment to move towards public registers in a staged manner, conditional upon progress towards open access taking place in the EU. In 2022, the European Court of Justice issued a landmark ruling recognising the serious breaches of privacy and human rights that public registers may entail. As a consequence, many EU registers have suspended public access. The Crown Dependencies are carefully considering our position concerning the judgment and believe that continuing with public registers would cause serious breaches of our own privacy and human rights laws. With Guernsey and the Isle of Man, we are at an advanced stage of agreeing a revised commitment around the public transparency of our register, and we intend to publish a statement later this week along with the revised commitment.
Supplementary question, Deputy.
Supplementary to say, thank you, sir. If the UK wishes to seek leadership on this issue, public registers, it cannot be taken seriously as a world leader on financial transparency. It does not do more, and it's not seen to do more, to stop overseas territories and Crown dependencies like ours being used as havens for individuals to evade their obligations. Does the Minister agree?
So I do not. I think the Deputy's question actually shows a level of misunderstanding on his part, and I think perhaps we should propose some briefings to him as we do to others elsewhere. We have for decades had a register of a register of beneficial ownership that is vetted and verified. It has been held out as a shining example to other nations of how to put together such a register. And it's something that we are proud of, and it is a matter of, for the UK Parliament, how they wish to manage their own affairs.
Deputy Messick.
Thank you, sir. Jersey's Register of Beneficial Ownership, as we know, is of substantially better quality than the register that the United Kingdom has in terms of the accuracy of its information on it. So I have seen some commentary on this issue in the UK about trying to widen the scope of access to that register, if not making it fully public at this stage and see where that goes, but to allow for some access to it for investigative journalists when they have a case to look at it if they're doing work that is clearly in the public interest. Is that something that's being considered as at least a step forward to improving the accessibility for non-government institutions that are acting in the public interest?
I thank the Deputy for demonstrating his understanding of our position, and I thank him for that. As I mentioned earlier, the ECJ judgment has given rise to our consideration of the matter, particularly in and around legitimate interest. And as I said earlier, I will be making a statement later in the week, I hope, to update members.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
So I'm not 100% clear on the specific issue that I asked, which was about access to that register for non-government or non-law enforcement agencies, such as investigative journalists, many whom we know have expertise in this area and want to unearth issues where they think harmful tax practices are occurring through UK overseas territories and Crown dependencies. If the Minister is saying at this point that she doesn't want the register to be made fully public because of those concerns, will she at least say that she wants to improve accessibility to it when there's a public interest case from a non-government entity?
So I believe that's exactly what I said in my previous answer when I talked about legitimate interest, and I look forward to updating members later in the week.
Deputy Farnham.
Well, so my question has been partially asked and answered, but the comments, as quoted by Deputy Southern, were made by a Labour backbencher. How are the government's current discussions with the UK government proceeding on the matter, given the fact that Jersey works very closely with UK governments in relation to those comments? made by the Labour backbencher.
Sorry, I don't, I'm not aware of the Labour backbenchers' comments that the deputy is referring to.
The comments of Margaret Hodge MP, as referred to in Deputy Sutherland's question.
Deputy Sutherland's question, Chief Minister, was a quotation from Margaret Hodge MP in part, and that was one which he springboarded his question to you. Deputy Farnham is saying, in the light of that, how is our government working with the UK government? Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. To simplify the question, are the UK government aligned with the comments of the Labour backbencher, or are we having more productive discussions with them?
Sorry, I'm struggling to hear the deputy somewhat from this end of the room. I'm not sure whether there's an issue with his microphone. Sir, I believe that I don't believe that the UK government would be aligned with the Labour backbencher.
And I think the second part of the question, that was the first part, was are the discussions between our government and the United Kingdom government more productive?
Yes, sir. We always maintain productive communications with the UK government, whoever they might be.
Deputy Taddy.
So it's to follow up on the question by Deputy Mazek about legitimate interest from, for example, outside journalists. If an outside journalist were, for example, to want to look at the affairs of, let's say, a Russian oligarch who was directly or indirectly connected to Vladimir Putin, who used Jersey to put his money in, how would the public interest in that matter be decided, given the fact that the public interest from a Jersey perspective, or certainly from the Jersey government's perspective, might be different to the public interest of that of the UK or even Russia?
So the deputy's question, I think, identifies how technical this area can be, and it will need, of course, very careful consideration to set out a framework within which a legitimate interest can be defined and or agreed. And that is something that we will be briefing members about later in the week, and we will continue to make progress in this area so that we are comfortable with the position that is arrived at. As I've said previously, we have been working with Guernsey and the Isle of Man to consider this important area. The Deputy, of course, also refers to potential subjects who might be fall into our sanctions regime. And of course, we have been very active as a government in meeting those requirements and being the good global citizens that we are.
Supplemental question. Deputy Balash.
So is the Chief Minister aware of an interesting article in the latest issue of the Jersey and Guernsey Law Review on this very topic? And if not, would she like to read it?
I thank the Deputy for the question. I had not seen that article, and I would be most grateful if it could be shared with myself and my colleagues. Thank you.
Supplemental question to that? In fact, that now brings the time available for questions to the Chief Minister, beg your pardon, to the urgent question to an end. You have a final supplementary. Yes, sorry.
I thought you were going to skip past
I was
me.
slightly getting confused as to where we were on the order paper, but yes.
With the lightness of Tinkerbell. Public registers can also help to restore public faith in the tax system by helping to expose high levels of aggressive tax avoidance and evasion we know take place. In the long term, public registers can contribute to creating a fairer and less lopsided tax system. Does the Minister agree?
So I think my answers have made it quite clear that the European Court of Justice judgment identified the need to protect the identities of the person. As an Assembly, we have created an Office of the Information Commissioner because we understand that people's personal information is something that should receive a level of protection. So we do not, as an Assembly, I'm sure, wish to make the children of people targets for kidnap or worse, simply because of who their parents may or may not be, and any perceived wealth that they may or may not have.
Very well. That ends the urgent oral question. There's nothing under J and K. We come on to public business, but before we start public business, a decision needs to be made about whether to reduce the minimum lodging period in respect of a matter on the order paper, the appointment of a Commissioner for Children and Young People, P96. Chief Minister, do you wish to make the application or the proposition under Standing Order 26.7 that the lodging period be reduced to allow this matter to be debated at this sitting?
Thank you, sir. I would be grateful if the Assembly would agree to lifting this lodging period so that the appropriate action could be put into place and that we may progress with the choice of Dr. Carmel Corrigan as the new Children's Commissioner.
Is that proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Those in favour, kindly show.
The appel, please, sir.
Bell is called for. Invite members to return to their seats. The vote is on whether or not you make that proposition. Is the proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Those in favour, kindly show. Those against? That proposition is adopted, and accordingly, we will now deal with that as the first item of public business. This is the appointment of the Commissioner for Children and Young People, P96, lodged by the Chief Minister. The main responder is the Chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. According with paragraph 4.4 of the schedule to the Commissioner for Children and Young People's Jersey Law 2019, this must be conducted in camera, and this will happen once the proposition has been read, and the Assembly will then return to public session for the purpose of the vote. And I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The States are asked to decide whether they are of opinion, in accordance with the provisions of Article 4 of the Schedule to the Commissioner for Children and Young People Jersey Law 2019, to approve the recommendation of the Chief Minister and the President of the Scrutiny Liaison Committee to appoint, for a period of 6 years, Dr. Carmel Corrigan to the office of Commissioner for Children and Young People.
Therefore, ask the Assembly be cleared. Anyone in the public gallery should leave the Assembly now. And any members of the public who wish to come into the public gallery can come into the public gallery. And we're now in open session, and I put the matter to the vote and ask the greffier to open the voting and members to record their votes. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted. 42 votes pour, no votes contre, 2 abstentions.
We have the two, please, sir.
The members who abstained, Deputies Tadier and Balash.
Very well. We now move on to the next item of public business, which is the draft government plan.
So I wasn't quite sure when to raise this, but I've had a written question 481, and it's only just received it. It's quite difficult because we're getting written questions. But I really don't believe the first part of it's been answered. A, B, C and D have, but in the text at the top it asks for a total spend, and that total spend isn't given, and I've tried to calculate it, but there's no way I could calculate it without actually knowing the number of days that people were employed. So I just wondered if I could ask you to consider it. Written question 481.
Written question 481?
Yes.
Well, there will be no written questions for this session.
Well, I've only just received the answer.
And it's from the last session?
Yes. Yeah, Mr. Cole.
Right. Well, Deputy, it's because the answers are starting to come in today. In fact, they're coming in for the January sitting. So I will look at it in the intervening period, but I may not give you an answer before tomorrow, or indeed the day after. That's 481. Yes. Very well. Well, we now move on to the government plan. I'm going to, of course, ask the greffier to read the proposition, but Chief Minister, my understanding is that a number of amendments have been accepted by the Council of Ministers.
That's right, sir. I think 9.
And you would wish to have the proposition read as amended by those amendments that have been accepted?
That's right. Would you like me to list which ones? Or...
Well, if members have the running order in front of them, they are listed at the first paragraph of the running order. And it's a matter for members, of course, whether the proposition is read as amended by those amendments accepted by the Council of Ministers, and then we then come on to deal with those in dispute, or alternatively, we proceed a different way. And I think it might be helpful to clarify that before the adjournment so that we know where we are when we come to deal with the debate itself. Are members content that we take the proposition as amended by the amendments that the Council of Ministers have accepted? Very well. Well, then I won't take a vote on that. That's quite clear. It has been accepted as an con. We have 10 minutes left. I suspect the greffier can read the proposition in 10 minutes. So, formally, the first item for debate is the government plan, 2024 to 27, P72, lodged by the Council of Ministers. I ask the greffier to read the proposition. The main responder is the chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. Greffier.
The states are asked to decide whether they are of opinion to receive the Government Plan 2024 to 2027 specified in Article 9.1 of the Public Finances Jersey Law 2019, the law, and specifically, A, to approve the estimate of total states' income to be paid into the Consolidated Fund in 2024 as set out in Appendix 2, Summary Table 1 to the report, which is inclusive of the proposed taxation and AMPO duties changes outlined in the Government Plan, in line with Article 9.2a of the law, except the total estimate for 2024 AMPO duties shall be decreased by £2.7 million by freezing the AMPO duties for fuel, with the relevant figures in Appendix 2, Summary Table 1, updated in line with the following table and subsequent figures updated accordingly. B, to refer to the Act dated the 30th September 2016 and to approve the application of existing resources for work on the development of user pays charges in relation to all aspects of waste, including commercial and domestic liquid and solid waste. C, to approve the proposed changes to approval for financing borrowing for 2024, as shown as in Appendix 2, Summary Table 2 to the report, which may be obtained by the Minister for Treasury and Resources as and when required, in line with Article 9.2c of the law, of up to those revised approvals. D, to approve the extension of the use of the existing revolving credit facility to include the provision of funds that would otherwise be implemented through bank overdraft or bank overdraft facilities under Article 26(1)a of the law, should they be needed, subject to the limits outlined in that article. E, to approve the transfers from one state's fund to another for 2024 of up to and including the amount set out in Appendix 2, Summary Table 3, in line with Article 9.2b of the law. F, to approve a transfer from the Consolidated Fund to the Stabilisation Fund in 2024 of up to £25 million, subject to a decision of the Minister for Treasury and Resources based on the availability of funds in the Consolidated Fund, as at the 31st of December 2023, in excess of the estimates provided in this plan, or from budgeted underspends identified before the 31st of December 2024. G, to approve each major project that is to be started or continued in 2024 and the total cost of each such project and any amendments to the proposed total cost of a major project under a previously approved government plan, in line with Article 9.2d, e and f of the law and as set out in Appendix 2, Summary Table 4 to the report. H, to approve the proposed amount to be appropriated from the Consolidated Fund for 2024 for each head of expenditure, being gross expenditure less estimated income, if any, in line with Articles 9.2g, 10.1 and 10.2 of the law and set out in Appendix 2, Summary Tables 5.1 and 5.2 of the report, except that to accommodate a drop in states' income caused by freezing the AMPO duties for fuel, A, the head of expenditure for Central Reserve should be reduced by £1,350,000. B, the head of expenditure for the Cabinet Office shall be reduced by £932,000. And C, the head of expenditure for the Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture shall be reduced by £418,000. And in Summary Table 5.1, the head expenditure for customer and local services should be increased by £600,000 to enable a non-statutory scheme to be set up to provide financial support to eligible families that include a child with a life-limiting condition, a life-threatening condition, or a complex healthcare need, with a decrease of £600,000 to the Central Reserve Head of Expenditure. I. To approve the estimated income, being estimated gross income less expenditure, that each state's trading operation will pay into its trading fund in 2024 in line with Article 9.2h of the law and set out in Appendix 2, Summary Table 6 to the report. J. To approve the proposed amount to be appropriated from each state's trading operations trading fund for 2024 for each head of expenditure in line with Article 9.2i of the law and set out in Appendix 2, Summary Table 7 to the report. K. To approve the estimated income and expenditure proposals for the Climate Emergency Fund for 2024 as set out in Appendix 2, Summary Table 8 to the report. L. To commit to the annual publication of a report in alignment with the Building a Safer Community Framework to provide updates on the progress made in implementing the recommendations of the report of the Task Force on Violence Against Women and Girls and the impact they have had on preventing violence against women and girls and improving gender equality in Jersey, and include the publication of a timeline of the Government of Jersey's work programme on these areas for the following year. N. To agree that the annual report specified in paragraph L must identify how measures outlined in the relevant government plan apply to improving gender equality in Jersey, with a focus on establishing an intersectional approach to all future strategies and other work by the Government of Jersey to address violence against women and girls, as outlined in Recommendation 2 of the report by the Task Force on Violence Against Women and Girls. And N. To approve, in accordance with Article 9.1 of the law, the Government Plan 2024 to 2027 as set out at Appendix 3 to the report, except that in the section Improving Access to Housing on page 9, there should be inserted a fifth bullet point with the words, "We will develop a scheme to encourage and incentivise right sizing to be presented to the States Assembly before the 31st of May 2024, with the financial implications forming part of the Government Plan 2025 to 2028. On page 10, after the words, "especially our most vulnerable can thrive," should be inserted a new bullet point. We will review feasibility options for expanding early years nursery provision and childcare support to benefit all children in Jersey from 9 months to 3 years old, with a report detailing any action plan from the government to be presented to the States Assembly before the 1st of September 2024, and any financial implications forming part of the Government Plan 2025 to 2028. On page 66, after the words urgency and readiness of projects in year, there should be inserted the following new paragraph. The funding of at least £4.705 million approved in the Government Plan 2020 to 2023 and Government Plan 2021 to 2024 for the Larocchia School and Community Sports Facilities will be reviewed with the intent that the project is reprioritised in order to improve access to sports facilities in the east of the island. On page 87, there should be inserted the words, additional funding of up to £1 million per year will be allocated to support the provision of hosier dressings and wound dressings to those with a clinical need. The new scheme will be set up as soon as practicable and will provide products at no cost to the end user, and Table 44 on page 87 updated accordingly to reflect the increased expenditure forecast. On page 90, after the words benefits for many years to come, there should be inserted a new paragraph as follows. Funds have been allocated for 2024 to enable a non-statutory scheme to be set up to provide financial support to eligible families that include a child with a life-limiting condition, a life-threatening condition, or a complex healthcare need. During 2024, the government will bring forward legislation to provide for a permanent scheme for future years. On page 93, after the word that could deliver the additional funding required, there should be inserted the following words. This will include investigation of the introduction of an appropriate carbon tax or charge relating to the operation of private aircraft. And on page 112, under the subheading New Rules for Pensions, the words £10,000 should be substituted with £15,000.
Well, is the adjournment proposed?
So I propose the adjournment.
Very well, the Assembly stands adjourned, excuse me, until 2:15, when the Chief Minister will propose the government plan.